The ships were loaded to the brim. Those are his words, not mine. Tuesday afternoon, the president is in front of reporters at the White House, touring a new ballroom, of all things, and he says he was 1 hour from ordering a full strike on Iran. 1 hour, and then he didn't. The reason he gave: Gulf leaders called and asked him to wait. Qatar, Saudi, the UAE, give us a couple more days. But here's what almost nobody said next to that quote. Officials from some of those exact countries told reporters they had no idea a strike was even coming. So either we were 60 minutes from war, or we were 60 minutes from a very good story about being 60 minutes from war. That gap between loaded ships and the allies who hadn't heard about them, that's the whole brief today. I'm Molly Reed. This is Intelligence Brief. Here's some quick context so the rest lands. The US and Iran have been in a shooting war since late February. There's a shaky ceasefire that's held, barely, since early April. Iran still controls the Strait of Hormuz, the choke point about a fifth of the world's oil sails through. The US has Iranian ports under naval blockade. And this week, Chinese supertankers that sat trapped behind that closure for 2 months finally sailed out. Millions of barrel markets had basically been written off, and now they're suddenly back in play. So when the president says the strike is an hour away, but also 2 or 3 days, maybe Sunday, that's not a countdown. That's a clock he resets whenever he likes. When the focus is on the potential for conflict and not the conflict itself, it's worth asking if this is narrative shaping or the sharing of information. Let's shift home. The Department of Justice just signed a settlement that does 2 unusual things at once. First, the government agreed it's forever barred from pursuing existing tax claims and audits against the president, his sons, and the Trump Organization. Returns filed before this week. Second, it stood up a fund, $1.76 billion, call it 1.8, to pay people who say they were politically persecuted by the prior administration, the Anti-Weaponization Fund. The acting attorney general who signed it used to be the president's personal defense lawyer. He told a Senate panel he wouldn't rule out January 6th defendants drawing from it. A former IRS commissioner, career guy, not a partisan, said he'd never seen the agency agree in advance to permanently not examine one specific person's returns. Watch the scope, because the coverage blurred it. This covers past returns and pending audits. The DOJ says future examinations aren't barred. That doesn't make it small. The dangerous thing about a one-time carve-out is that it's never one time. It's a template somebody else will fill in later. On Monday in San Diego, 2 teenagers, ages 17 and 18, opened fire at the largest mosque in the city. 3 men are dead. A security guard reportedly charged the shooters. Officials say he's the reason it wasn't far worse. The attackers died by suicide, and police are treating it as a hate crime. Most outlets settled fast on 3 words: teens, guns, online hate. But investigators found a 75-page manifesto, and it does not fit a clean political box. Islamophobia and anti-Semitism, accelerationism, anti-Trump material, praise for the Christchurch shooter. That's not one ideology. That's a kid who's marinated in the internet's worst rooms until the only through line left was violence itself. The tidy label is easier to broadcast, but it's also less true. Across the world, the WHO declared a global health emergency over an Ebola outbreak in eastern Congo, now spilling into Uganda. It's a rare strain, and the hard part is there's no licensed vaccine and no approved drug for this one. You'll hear big numbers. By midweek, 540 plus suspected cases, 130 plus deaths. Hold on to one word in that sentence: suspected. Lab-confirmed cases are around 10. The death count and the confirmed count are not the same number, and in week 1, they almost never are. The quiet, well-documented part. This thing smoldered roughly 3 weeks before anyone confirmed it. A U.S. epidemiologist tied that delay straight to cuts in global health programs. You don't notice the smoke detector you stopped paying for until the house is already warm. Beijing had a remarkable week. The U.S. president was there on a state visit and walked out with a 200-plane Boeing order and $17 billion a year in farm purchases. Days later, Putin lands in the same city for his own summit with Xi. 2 rivals, 1 host, 1 week. State media there called it proof Beijing is the focal point of global diplomacy, and for once, the spin matches the seating chart. When everyone has come to your house, you're not picking a side. You are the table. And back home, the most expensive House primary in American history just ended. More than $32 million in ads for 1 seat. Congressman Thomas Massie, who'd broken with the president on the Iran war and pushed to release the Epstein files, lost to a Trump-backed challenger. The defense secretary personally showed up in the district to campaign against him. That much money on 1 House race was never about the House seat. It was about setting a price for dissent, out in the open, so the next person does the math and stays quiet on their own. Now, this is where I want you to treat the coverage itself as evidence. Same lens every episode, what we call the PSYOPs index, scoring how manufactured a narrative looks from things you can actually observe, not vibes, language, timing, repetition, who gets quoted, what's missing. Iran scores high on language convergence. Inside the same 48 to 72-hour window, outlet after outlet reached for the identical phrases: fragile ceasefire, on life support, giving diplomacy a chance. When independent newsrooms all grab the same metaphor in the same 2 days, that's usually not 10 reporters being original. That's everyone drinking from the same briefing. Watch the casting too. The voices framing Iran as pragmatic restraint skew heavily think tank and former official, people whose institutions have a stake in the answer. Now the domestic stories. The IRS fund and the Massie race score low on that same index, and that's the tell. They scored low because the coverage diverged. One set of outlets ran ending weaponized government, and another ran brazen self-dealing. Same facts, opposite headlines. Convergence is the fingerprint of a pushed narrative. Divergence usually means nobody's watching. You're just watching tribes sort identical facts into their own bins. Theater is where the framing does more work than the evidence can carry. Clean side-by-sides. Iran. The coverage is a president pulled back from the brink at the last second. The record is that he announced the strike himself on social media, and some of the allies he credited said they didn't know it was coming. The drama may be more authored than averted. Ebola. The coverage is 130 plus dead. Clinics are overwhelmed, act now. But the record is those are suspected deaths. Confirmed cases sit in the low double digits. The urgency may be fully earned, but suspected and confirmed are different words for a reason, and only one of them traveled. The IRS fund. Coverage on one side, a permanent shield from all future scrutiny. The record is the document covers past returns and pending audits. The DOJ says future exams aren't barred. Still extraordinary, but the loudest version isn't the accurate one. None of this makes the underlying stories fake. It means the confidence in the telling keeps outrunning what the documents actually say. So, does anything this week cross from messy coverage into something engineered? My honest answer is not cleanly, but one pattern is worth naming out loud. The Iran narrative lands in the upper middle band on our index. High on language convergence, high on emotional levering, relief for one audience, weakness for another. High on missing context, especially that buried oil economic story that almost nobody connected. Now that profile rhymes with documented playbooks. Rand has a name for one: the fire hose of falsehood. High volume, many channels, endlessly repetitive. Not even necessarily consistent, just relentless until repetition starts to feel like confirmation. U.S. military doctrine has its own language for it, going back to Joint Publication 313, Information Operations, shaping the environment, not just reporting it. Now, I'm not telling you a government wrote Tuesday's headlines. I'm telling you the shape of the coverage matches the shape of those models. And this is the line that matters the most in this entire show. A pattern match is not proof of intent. Coincidence, lazy groupthink, and a coordinated operation can all leave the exact same footprint. The honest move is to flag the footprint and refuse to pretend you know which boot made it. For the next 72 hours to a week, here are some specific checkable things. Iran. The president floated 2 or 3 days, maybe Sunday. So this weekend is a real hinge. Watch ship tracking, marine traffic for tanker movement through the Hormuz, breaking from its 30-day pattern. Tankers move before press releases do. For energy, watch the Brent crude. If those freed Chinese tankers actually steady the supply, prices will ease. If Sunday heats up, they spike. The oil tape tells you which way the war's leaning before any official will. Ebola. Watch the gap between suspected and confirmed in the WHO situation reports. If confirmed climbs towards suspected, it's spreading faster than it's contained. If it doesn't, the early panic outran the data. The IRS fund. Watch for the actual claims process to get posted. Rules, eligibility, who qualifies. That document, not the press conference, tells you who this is really for. Massie aftermath. Watch whether other members who broke with the president on Iran suddenly go quiet this week. Silence is a data point. The price was just set in public, and now you see who's paying it. Step back, and the through line isn't Iran or Congo or a Kentucky primary. It's pressure on oil, on institutions, on dissent, on global health, all squeezing at once, and everyone reaching for the cleanest story to explain it. The cleanest story is almost never the truest one. It's just the one that's easiest to repeat. So here's what I'll leave you with. The goal was never to make you cynical. Cynical people are easy. They dismiss everything equally and learn nothing. The goal is to make you expensive, hard to spin, the kind of person who hears an hour away and will quietly ask, an hour by whose clock? I'm Molly Reed. Structure first, pattern second, conclusion yours. Stay expensive. I'll see you tomorrow.